Well, you still get my full attention for 2 hours.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Now is the time set for the continuation of the Budget Committee hearings for 2023, 2024 budget. Mr. Hanson, I believe we left off with public health. We have present Noelle Carroll, and I believe I'm a little unclear on who's going to do the presentation.
I'll do the actual budget presentation. Noelle is here to answer questions or give you overviews on the programs, if depending on what you want to hear from her.
So do we have any bring back list?
No, I was going to go. So actually, we tentatively approved as proposed all budgets yesterday that we reviewed. We are ahead of schedule in that we completed management services yesterday. They were included in today's, or was supposed to be in today's schedule. The only adjustment we made was a $5,000 wish list item for CASA, raising from what I proposed at $20,000 up to the $25,000, or an additional $5,000 to make it $25,000 that you have provided them the last 2 years. So that's the only addition that has been made so far to the proposed budget that we reviewed yesterday. We got through all of the general fund with the exception of transfers. When we do these individual funds, you're somewhat approving those de facto because they're included in there. Those that we've done already, you had juvenile, which had the biggest general fund transfer. You had dog control or animal control, where we increased it from 110 to 170. There's a number of general fund transfers within the programs that we'll be discussing today. Public health has one, health services has one, veterans has one, and public works has one. So if we TA those budgets, then essentially you'll be tentatively approving those transfers, but we'll go back and do the transfers in totality in that. So moving forward, we have 3 funds, which Noelle oversees and manages. The first being the Public Health Fund. It has its own tab in your budget books. Revenues equating to $3,590,000 for the fiscal year being proposed, along with the 3 programs, which are family planning, general health, and WIC. General health is a catch-all program that has a whole litany of little programs within it. It is what most people think of when they think of public health, but this budget is obviously in flux and has changed over the last 2-3 years. COVID had a big infusion of money that came in as COVID is being closed out. Some of the monies that we received we're having to return because they went unspent and those kind of things. This is the best guess, at least right now, for the Public Health Fund. We will probably fine tune it in May and maybe even fine tune it again in June when we adopt. But overall, family planning has pretty much the same as it was last year. It has a small increase over what was adopted. The general fund transfer is the same amount that it was last year in the amount of $75,000. This program is probably a bare bones skeleton type of program for family planning. The general health, like I said, is home to a lot of sub programs. You have, we provide health services, nursing, and jail health. We provide communicable disease, immunizations, home visiting, emergency preparedness, vital statistics. All those are elements within the general health. It is the big program and where most of our staff reside in this fund. This amount is much lesser than it was what we adopted in 22-23, and like I said, it is remnants of what's left over from COVID and that. I anticipated it going down. The beginning fund balance is also going down. You could see our beginning fund balance in 21-22 was over $2.5 million historically. And then that dropped in half in this current fiscal year, and then it's going to drop in half again. Public health it's how it works when you have a pandemic. Infusion of cash, they're great fiscally for 2 or 3 years. They seem to forget that pandemics don't occur, and then they start reducing the funding to public health. And then when the next pandemic occurs, which I hope it doesn't, but when it does, they realize they don't have enough money in there, and then they dump a bunch of money in, and that's how the cycle tends to work. So
Are we covered in that interim when with getting fund balances and those kinds of things?
the interim is covered by the general fund transfer.
Okay,
During the peak of COVID and that, we cut the general fund transfer to zero because there was so much cash and so much grant money coming in that adding ours to it just didn't matter. So historically, our transfer to general or to public health has been over 300,000. We're at 200,000. Whether we do that in totality or not, don't know yet. But it will get to 300,000 depending on how long that valley is before the next health crisis. The last program within the public health fund is WIC, woman, infant, child. They'll probably have to change that title sometime in the future, who knows? But it's a long-standing, well-established program that's been in the county for as long as I've been here. I believe I remember Phil Walker saying that his mom worked in the public health WIC program. So it's been around for a while at the federal level, and that this is mostly federal funded. It doesn't cover all our expenses and requires a general fund transfer. So the two areas where we have the general fund transfer is the family planning and the WIC programs. The general health, at least at this time, doesn't need general fund support. So overall, like I said, the total for the fund is $3,590,000, both in expenses and in appropriations. There is a $344,000 contingency in this program also. So if you have any questions, I'd recommend tentative approval of the public health fund and the 3 programs that it consists of.
Is there a pending motion?
don't move.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
I may just give a shout out to the public health administrator, Naomi. She is top notch. I heard feedback about her as a community partner all over through my work with the COC and elsewhere. So well done recruiting and retaining a top notch public health administrator.
Thank you. Good.
You want Noel to talk about public health? You want me to go through all these and then she can just talk about anything you want her to talk about?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next fund is the biggest fund in the county. It is the behavioral health fund, in the amount revenues in the amount of $34,341,000 or $841,000. Those resources are coupled with the 4 programs that show up in this fund. There is a 5th program, but it is not budgeted or allocated for any appropriations. It's there for historical terms. And that's the sub-grant program, which no longer exists, at least at the county level. You have the health services, what is mostly the administrative role of the behavioral health program. A lot of administration for behavioral health occurs in this program, and then also in the following fund, health services, that directs all the programs under Noel. You have, this budget has a little over $12 million included in it. FTE are up slightly over what was approved or adopted last year. You have one new item in the M&S category, which is a interfund loan in the amount of 1.5 million. That will be a loan to help complete the FCO building and the S curves. I mentioned that in my budget message, and that will require us to have a public hearing and then a resolution drawn up that basically outlines the terms. So behavioral health would loan that to FCO. FCO or the health services fund would be required to pay that back with interest, and the interest rate that is used is what we're currently receiving at the pool, investment pool, the state investment pool. And that's how we'll calculate interest along with the principal, and it has to be paid back within 10 years. There's no penalties for early payback or anything like that. So that's what we'll establish there. The other big line item in this budget is $3.5 million for building. We plan on, and I again talked about it, building a new building on the campus in the northeast section of the property that we own. And that would house some of the new programs that are enhanced programs kind of that Noel is receiving money from the state. We have money dedicated that we can use for that, and we have enough reserves to finish off whatever the building's going to cost and that. So it's going to be somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 square foot facility. It's going to be most likely one story, and we'll be housing some of those programs or enhanced programs over there and free up some space in the academy building for the rest of behavioral health. Overall, this is the second biggest program budget within there. It's hard to imagine that there's one that's bigger, but there is, and we'll get to that in a second. The next program is addictions program. This kind of has its own dedicated funding. This program probably will see enhancements to its funding. If what I hear from across the river occurs, there could be additional monies being pushed out at the state level to addictions and prevention and those kind of things in this program. But we don't know what those details are. I'm sure Noel has a perfect roadmap of what's going on across the river and can tell you that, yeah, everything's under control. There is no chaos in the building. But like I said, this is pretty much a program dedicated for addiction services. It's not, it keeps getting larger. They were, realizing 5 years ago that maybe they didn't have enough money, and they've been beefing this up, and it will continue to get beefed up. There are a little more FTE that are assigned to this program and that, but pretty much, status quo program there. The big program in behavioral health is outpatient services. This is kind of like general health and public health. There are a number of sub-programs within outpatient services, both adult and child, and outpatient services, counseling, all those things, crisis management, everything is kind of the catch-all for the non-dedicated addictions. And the next one after this is DD. They kind of have their own funding. And then outpatient services, at least how we refer to it, covers all the other programs within behavioral health other than the administration. This is funded by Medicaid, OHP, capitation, some federal money, then there's state operating grants, and those are the things that are coming from the state that here we're going to give you $2 million to address this issue. Here's the money. Do good. We'll tell you the details later type of programs that we're receiving from the state and direction from OHA and those kind of places. So again, this is where most of the FTE are housed within the behavioral health program. There is an increase over what was budgeted last year. We did some major salary adjustments this last year to behavioral health and the employee salaries and their structure inside of this program. The state assisted in funding those increases in wages and that, and hopefully continue to fund them through raised fees and those kind of things that they said they would. The last one program is developmentally disabled or disabilities. This has it of all the dedicated fundings in this program, this has its own silo of money. It got, 3 or 4 years ago, they greatly increased the amount of money that went into DD, and this is probably leveling out. Whether there'll be another push for this program or not in funding, don't know, but I think it's in a pretty good place. We increased staff dramatically from what we had 3-4 years ago. So, and it took us a while to get geared up in this program. So we had some leftover money, and then we eventually paid it and got all the appropriate FTE assigned to this program and that. So overall, those are the programs within behavioral health. It is, like I said, the largest individual fund, greater than the general fund now. It has had the most rapid growth of any program in the county by far. And whether there's an end in sight right now, it doesn't look like it, but eventually I can't believe the infusion of capital and money that are going into this program can be sustained. So we're a little more hesitant than others of expanding to the level that others have. So we manage it appropriately in that, and Noelle does a great job in this program. Not that she doesn't in the other programs. So I would recommend approving both resources and program budgets for behavioral health.
I had a quick question about the new building, $3.5 million for a new building. That's the total cost?
We own the land. It won't, that's, if it's 8,000 square foot building, that's over $400 a square foot. Yeah, we'll cover it.
Just been involved in a couple of larger projects, or a couple of projects where we own the land, and I think we're $8 million for the cheapest building that we put on it.
How big was it?
It's a 34-unit apartment building.
Yeah, you have 34 individual bathrooms, 34. Can't compare office structure to apartment buildings and that. The other thing you're finding, I mean, we used to build buildings for $200, $250 a square foot. Today's market is closer to $400. If you build like Multnomah County or the state, you're probably looking at $600 to $650 because of all the niceties that they put in their buildings. I think police building in Salem was over 700 a square foot, so we don't build that way.
It's a very nice building. And inside, it's
Yeah,
super cool.
but the taxpayers had to pay for it.
Yes.
Cool is expensive.
So
All right. Is there a pending motion?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
The addiction services, is this relating to the homeless like situation or?
The addiction services and what's happening with that fund are not directly related to the homeless initiatives and that funding at this point. They're separate. And certainly there's an overlap with the population that a lot of the folks that are unhoused are having substance use issues. And so we're working together, but as far as how it's impacting the budget, there are not funds within this that are directly related to housing.
Further discussion? Or pending motion?
Also move.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Why don't we just do these two funds? We'll wait till Brent shows up for health services because Brent's here. Okay, we'll do health services next. This fund houses the rest of Human Services Administration. There are approximately 15 people in this budget, at least in this program budget. This is where Noelle's FTE reside, and a lot of her managers and or direct support staff show up in this budget. There is an interdepartmental charge within behavioral health and public health that funds this side of the health services fund that is incorporated in the two previous funds we just discussed. The other program within health services is FCO, which is overseen by Brent. And Brent has numerous programs and pages that he can talk about. Hopefully not in detail because we'd be here a long time, but oh, you're back there, right? Okay. But they're providing a lot of our prevention services and outreach and service integration, coordination of efforts to provide direct services to citizens that are in need and cutting through a lot of the red tape that they experience in other counties and that. So those are the two programs within the health services fund. Like I said, Brent's funding is grants. It's school-based. Schools are paying for the school-based services that we provide them. All of our school districts utilize that with the exception of Salem and 24J. This budget is growing compared to what was adopted in the previous year, but a lot of that is the $1.5 million loan that is being transferred from behavioral health to the FCO to finish up the building that's going to occur in the S curves. We are anticipating, like I said previously yesterday, some prevention money coming from the new efforts and the governor's emergency order from Family Building Blocks who received the prevention money. There are other funding sources in here, but the big funding source almost is the 1.5 million for the loan proceeds. I would recommend tentative approval of the Health Services Fund to cover both the Human Services Administration along with the FCO program.
Is there a pending motion?
So move.
Second. Further discussion?
Question. Give me an example of what special projects under Health Services Administration is for 266,000 plus.
You want to know? That is a plug figure to balance her budget. There is no identified, you can, I mean, I could put it in contingency, but there's really no need to put it in contingency. She's not going to spend it. You can see historically, we've spent a whopping $1,204. So it just, if anything comes up, Noelle has some incredible idea that she wants funded, then potentially we can do it. We're ready. But it's more of a balancing number.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Now you have Noelle and Brent and grill them appropriately or ask them any questions on their program.
Can we make some motions?
You can do whatever you want. You can do the rest of the budget presentation if you want.
I move to approve the entire budget and all go home.
Sure.
Questions? Noel, what are the
dangers, I guess you'd see moving forward with this constant inflow of money? And eventually the constant inflow is gonna disappear. And how do you balance that with your thinking as where you're going over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, you just summed up my nightmares every night. Yeah, how do we balance it? Right now, what we're doing is trying to be prudent as we do. You know, you and I have talked for years about trying not to get out over our skis. We've seen times where we've been overextended because we know that the state is going to swing over time. And so we know that this influx of money is not going to last forever. So we're trying to be really mindful of when we make new investments, that it's minimizing sustaining FTE that we're not going to be able to continue to fund in the future. So where we can make investments that help us around, for instance, this building, which is something we've needed for a very long time, which is going to benefit us in a lot of ways. That's going to be one-time funds that we're utilizing, rather than trying to just bring on more and more employees. And so that's one of the ways we're trying to be really mindful on how we're using the funds. At the same time, we're taking funds with a certain obligation that they have to be for programming that has to meet certain expectations. So we're trying to make sure that we're being smart. We're balancing the type of employees that we get. We don't have as many choices as we once did with that, though. The workforce issue is making that much more difficult. But we still contract in strategic spots where we can obtain a contractor instead of hiring employees, especially if we think if it's a temporary type role. Or find a temp position so that we know that what we're offering an employee coming on is upfront, so we're not making promises we can't keep. But there is an inherent danger with the amount of money that's coming in. And I don't think we've had multiple conversations with the board around that. So I think we're, feeling like we're stuck in a spot where we can't say no. And so we're doing the best we can to make sure that we're being as smart as possible. And so I'm spending time with the commissioners, with Greg, trying to make sure that I'm not making missteps that I can see, that I'm getting the information from them as they're in their committees and working with AOC, and that we're doing that as collaboratively as possible so that that's happening in a way that's keeping us in line with where the county wants to be, knowing that at some point there's going to be more and more difficult decisions ahead. So there's not a great answer, but we're thinking about it.
I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, it's
Because
the question.
The 25 years I've been on this committee, I've been through some of those swings and they are not fun.
Some of them have been pretty painful for them.
Very painful.
Yeah, and what's happening right now is not only is the money coming out, but the direction of where they're putting the money has changed. So the focus of the services is different than it used to be. So where we've talked about some of these budgets growing, and you see the FTE going up, it's not in the same services that it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's in a brand new direction. So will that sustain? Will that shift? There's multiple layers of questions in the things that are moving.
What direction is the funding going? Is it towards addiction services or where's the state headed?
The state right now is very focused on, well, with addiction services specifically, it's shifted away from supporting the mandated treatment population because the laws have changed and there is fewer mandated folks needing to seek treatment. So it's much more preventative focused. And so that's been a big shift into a different type of employee. They need different credentials, they need different education. In some ways, that's giving us a lot of broader flexibility to support more than just the addiction. Back to Mr. Watson's questions around the homeless population and how we're addressing that. To some extent, what we're able to do is really address more of the whole person, which will hopefully allow them to be better able to manage their addiction with the treatment coming together. So some of the changes are very good, but there's so many components that we're addressing with having a different kind of employee that has to be supported a different way and has different policies we're putting in place around that. So that's addiction services. Then you've got the rest of mental health, which has really shifted not shifted away necessarily from anything, but while wanting to sustain what has become a harder and harder resource to sustain, which is your traditional outpatient services, which nobody can get into right now and everybody's clamoring for and we cannot hire for. We still have the sustained same amount of folks wanting to come in for that. All this new money coming in has been very focused on the folks that are involved with the criminal justice system and your high acuity crisis. And so that's where some of the new programming or that enhanced programming is trying to build out upon services that we've always had, but they've largely been the services that we've really minimal teams around. And we're really now having to really bulk them up just in huge dramatic fashion with short timelines and a lot of money pumping in. But again, we're faced with how do you hire folks? There's not a workforce to hire in. Or how do we make changes to then support that from an infrastructure standpoint to support this workforce that we're now taking on that's brand new and different. So it's just a lot of shifting parts, but those are the two main areas that you're going to see the change.
Thank you.
How much autonomy do you have so that will allow you to, if somebody's very inventive, come up with a new concept and run with it some, do you have that capability?
It depends on the strings that are on the particular bucket of money. Most of the new money coming in has had more flexibility than we have traditionally seen. So that's been good. And we actually sat down with the state last night on 3 different funding sources that were related to this building, because we originally 6 to 8 months ago thought we were going a different direction with how we were going to accomplish 3 different programs. And for different reasons, those didn't look viable. We came back to the state after we had had internal discussion and finalized this new approach, saying we want to actually put this all together and it's going to create an economy of scale for us. It's going to make it so that we can run these 3 programs with fewer staff. It's going to make it so that it's actually on our campus and we have better supervision. What do you think about that? Can we redraft our contract? And they said, absolutely, this is a much better idea overall. Great job. So they're being more flexible and they are receptive to that creativity. What's been challenging is in a lot of cases, there's very short turnaround timelines. But again, they're open to us coming back after some of those timelines are even in place and letting us either extend or amend what's been put out. And then as far operationally, we have a great deal, I think, of flexibility, thankfully, that the board has granted me to continually reinvent our infrastructure around the programming, which I think is sometimes very fatiguing for the county and for our staff, but it's been necessary because you only have so many pieces to work with when we're not able necessarily to go get more pieces to play with. So we have to kind of put them in new spots and find a different way to support the same needs that we've had. So as far as within our infrastructure, we have a great.
So how is current staffing and has the retention held up since we've adjusted the wages and?
The retention bonuses that we put out seem to have slowed the exiting of current employees. We continue to have the same struggle we've had with recruiting new employees. So we haven't been able to fill the vacancies. And then as we've continued to experience some level of employees leaving either through retirement or some people who have just chosen to leave for other reasons, we've struggled to refill those positions. So slowly we're losing ground overall. So that continues to be one of our biggest areas of hurt.
Are there potential employees out there and wages just aren't competitive, or there's just full employment in mental health counseling and there's nobody even available? What's the lay of the land?
For our circumstance, it's both. Even though we've done wage adjustments, we're still not competing market to market. And so that continues to be a stumbling block. And then additionally, there is a limited workforce that exists, at least on the West Coast. And so we're still competing. So we're going head to head with the hospitals, with primary care offices, with telehealth that is sitting in Idaho, that is hiring the folks right out of my office and saying, just go sit in your kitchen at home and I'll pay you double what they're paying you. And so both and right now.
I can tell you that nationally, it's an issue too. Speaking with commissioners from across the country at the NACO conference, there are challenges, workforce challenges in this area generally, and the state's trying to be a little bit more creative about who can offer services, peer services and things like that. Correct, to kind of fill in some of those gaps. I mean, not replace, but
They are. To be frank, the critical issue that we have that's coming out of it is we've lost the most well-seasoned staff have gone to go do easier work and get paid more for it, leaving us with greener staff to work with the most severely acute folks in our community. And to the point where half of my outpatient workforce right now is either students or folks who have been granted into a special position by the state. So I don't have the experienced workforce necessary to work with the population that community mental health is designed to work with. So we're kind of caught in a catch-22. And while the state is trying to be more creative about providing these supports, it's not able to answer the question around how do they get us the people we actually need to do the core of the work. But they are trying to find a way to try to kind of keep things together while we continue to work on that question.
Any further questions, discussion?
Brent, what are the, I'm not gonna let you get off without anything, so.
Well, that's
He's
feeling
got the
good.
good news.
I was gonna say, what are the neat things that you're working on, and what are some of the positives you see and some of the negatives you see?
I'll start with the negative just because it kind of echoes some of the things that Noel said around staffing. I feel like both of our departments at different scales are super great training grounds for other people to just steal our amazing staff, some of which we have a good vibe party tonight for someone who's worked for the county for nearly 10 years. And in one interview, an organization in Salem, 25,000 more a year, completely work from home, work remote anywhere in the country, doing less work. And that's sort of the trend that we're seeing. This particular organization has actually the last 3 staff that have left for external jobs. That's where they have gone. So I just wanted to echo that it is tough to find the great people, and Polk County is an amazing place to work. And maybe our salaries aren't quite as competitive as others, but I think it's the attractiveness for the under 30 crowd of they just can make more money. And that's what they're thinking of right now. So I would say that I feel that struggle as well on the staffing side. I would say because of time, and I know you guys have all kinds of materials in front of you, just some of the good news stuff is Mr. Watson was talking about the homeless population, and addiction is a huge concern. Mental health is a huge concern. Our data from right now shows that over 50% of the folks that are unsheltered homeless in rural Polk County have either mental health or addiction, and oftentimes both. So in rural Polk County, where can you stay if you're homeless? We have warming centers, and that's great, but it's only during the cold time. So I think as part of an update of something positive, this money that is coming from the governor's initiative, there's about $14 million to be shared between Marion and Polk County. Shared is an interesting choice of words. It's for the region. And for the first time, there are proposals in to actually have shelter programs in rural Polk County. So if that's funded, there will be at least 40 beds that have never been in rural Polk County before, where folks at least have somewhere to stay. And what that does is it allows my programs, Noel's programs, to actually know where people are. Instead of people floating all over the county because there is nowhere, we will know where they are and we can start providing some of those services. My department, as you heard Mr. Hansen say, we put in for nearly $1 million of both prevention and outreach and resource connectivity with that pot of funds in a joint application with the Community Action Agency, so we can all do that work together. When I think about our homeless numbers over the last 3 years, it was 4 3 years ago. It was, I think, 36 2 years ago. And now it's close to 91. So we're seeing a trend of more unsheltered homeless, and also our methodology is better. We're counting folks better and finding them. But I really want to get ahead of not looking like Salem, not looking like Portland, and really having that prevention focus. And both of our departments will be working with that population. There's a lot of money right now to move people from stage 1, unsheltered homeless, stage 2, something transitional or emergency, and then work with them on addictions, on mental health, on all of those things. And then there's funding for paying rents and things like that for permanent housing. I'm excited about that for the next year, for sure.
You know, with the family transitional.
Yeah, we're, if anybody has a shovel, meet me at Dallas Alliance Church next Saturday. We'll be putting up a fence there. You know, the old Edison Hall building at Dallas Alliance Church on Ellendale? It is currently being remodeled into a family shelter where we'll be able to place one family at a time, surround them with all the wraparound services, and then get them their housing voucher or whatever is appropriate, move them into permanent housing, have another family stay there as well. It's a great partnership with the Dallas Alliance Church, and it will be ready to go probably by the end of May.
United Way.
And the United Way is one of the key funders. I feel like I got a teleprompter here. This is good. United Way contributed $50,000 to do that remodel. It's only going to cost about $10,000 a year to maintain, and the church is paying the majority of that, the utilities and all of that kind of stuff. I already have staff to provide case management, and so those are some of the small steps that we're doing, and not trying to do everything in one place, writing something out in Monmouth. There's a youth shelter coming online in Monmouth by the end of the summer, run by Community Action Agency. We'll have this micro shelter idea that I spoke of. You got this smaller shelter in Dallas for families. Our veteran service office is still running Gales Lodge for veterans. All of those small things help address the big picture.
Heard from a homeless service professional, community action, looking at our numbers and saying, wow, you guys can actually solve this rather than waiting until the crisis is almost untenable. Interventions early as the problem is manifesting, I think will put us in a better position than other communities.
Further questions? Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate.
Thank you for coming.
We always appreciate your guys' support every year as well.
Absolutely.
All right, I believe we TA'd the 3 program budgets. The next one on your list is Veteran Services Fund. We started this 5 years ago, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
The Veteran Services Department and Fund. This year, there is a general fund transfer of $90,000 for this program. The total budget is $330,000. We have 2.5 FTE in this program, 2 of which are VSOs, which is Veteran Service Officers. You have to go through training and get certified at the state level. Erica is our program manager for this program. We have exceeded what we believed we ever could do with this program and the services we're providing veterans that have a very difficult time maneuvering through the maze of federal and what is available funding for veterans that have the rights to that funding, but it's just too hard to get through it. We have in the veteran services arena, there is no geographic boundary. So if you live in Marion County, you can come over to Polk County. If you live in Yamhill County. So we receive a number of outside the county because of the successes we've had and word of mouth of veterans. They're very good at, hey, these guys know what they're doing. If you need it, come see them and that. So this program is working very well. Brent mentioned Gales Lodge as a transitional housing unit for up to 5 veterans. in that facility. That's a partnership with the church over off of Lockreal. Great program. We do receive state funding. This is a guess on the state funding. Historically, it's been 119,000. They're up for new biennium funding and that. Some of it's tied to lottery dollars and that. I'm estimating $125,000. We'll have to adjust that budget in January of the following year because for whatever reason, the state requires us to budget the exact number that they give. Doesn't make any sense, but that's their mindset, not mine. And, you know, so, but like I said, Brent can talk about the successes of this program, but it's probably been one of the best programs that we've initiated in a long time.
Ready for some things, y'all? I know you have a handout in front of you that Eric and his team put together. I'll just highlight a couple things on here and share one other note that I brought. In this last year, we became one of, I think, only 8 counties in Oregon to become a Purple Heart designated county. That was kind of really touching and an amazing thing. A lot of other counties just designate that at the board level, call it good and throw some signs up. We actually held a ceremony and we honored anyone who was a Purple Heart recipient, whether they were alive or deceased, in a huge ceremony at the Academy building. It was well attended, and it's one of the favorite things that happened in the last year for us, recognizing our nearly 7,000 veterans that reside in Polk County. So nearly 7,000 veterans, 2 veteran service officers, no increases from the state on how we do our work. So I want to say that I really appreciate the support that we have, because there is some general fund that comes to this, so we can make sure that we have 2 certified veteran service officers, and also one of them is one of the only women in the state who is a veteran service officer, and that's really advantageous for our office. Recently, federal legislation passed the PACT Act, which is great for veterans. It opens up the door to so many more allowable claims for things that weren't allowable in the past. It also means that we have seen a huge increase in how many people are coming in for either first-time claims or a subsequent claim to something that they did maybe 10 or 20 years ago. Our team, super happy to do that work. We're really good at that work, but also just giving you the reality of all of that more work comes with absolutely no money from either the federal government or the state to do the work. But they're doing a good job, and they're managing it just fine right now. You can see the dollar figures on here of how much money, when you sit down with a veteran service officer, they complete that claim, whether it's lifetime monthly allotments or annual allotments or new money that they bring into the county. And that has an economic impact. Nobody is measuring that really, but last year that money was not in our county. So that's just also kudos to the staff for bringing sort of that vitality to this area, and much deserved for the veterans. The last thing I wanted to share with you that was not in the handout because it's relatively new, the Oregon Department of Veteran Affairs gave a small grant to Polk County, $4,000, to do something around mental health or suicide prevention with veterans. And so you're probably all familiar with the Connie family here in this region. Their son was unfortunately killed in action years ago, and they have always been huge supporters of veterans. And they recently started Embrace Life Equine Rescue, and the Veteran Service Office is going to be hosting a family barbecue out there to introduce the concept of equine therapy for veterans, to have some of that support for PTSD and other things down the road. So that's coming up in May. It's the first time that they're doing it. If we get that funding, we're going to do it every single year to help support not only what the Tawnies are doing, but provide that support for veterans too. Happy to answer any questions about our awesome VSO office if you have any.
I think that state funding methodology is true to services and cost
No,
and fairness. Okay, I'm just, that was a rhetorical,
no.
something that I learned about a little bit when I first came
Generally
out.
speaking, as a guy who's worked for the state and done this work for a while, it's always frustrating when state agencies grow. They get cost of living, they have more staff and all of that stuff, but the local areas that do the lion's share of the work, you know, we hardly see an increase every year, but the workload increases. So it's going to get to a critical point in the next year of how many appointments. I would hate for Blair to call and say, well, we could see you in November because that's how booked we are. I don't ever want to get to a point like that. We're not there right now, but there has to be a shift in the future.
At what point do you think you're gonna, would add a third VSO?
When ODVA pays for it, they would have to increase our budget by $85,000 at a minimum. Because they only give us enough money barely for one veteran service officer and not running the office, just enough for one person. So no matter how many claims we do, no matter how much funding we bring in, it does not change our allotment. There's no like bonus, good job, or commission. There's nothing like that at all. So it's a funding formula that they have based on population and veteran population.
And if you cross geographic boundaries, we don't get counted for
That's right.
anyone who comes and visits us.
Yeah, it's
You get penalized for being good.
almost, right? They're also one of the few funding entities that if Mr. Hansen adds $5,000 more, you're stuck with that. You can't change that next year. That is your new amount. You can't ever go backward. So if you put 90,000 in this year, that is the minimum you have to put in going forward, and that's how they do it there. So we always have to be careful with those things too.
It's interesting.
That's what they try to say. Reality is if we don't, they aren't going to take it away.
How are they going to force that?
That's what they pound their chest and try to let you know that once you put that in, that's your future dedicated funding stream without them having to do anything. So I've gone to battle with them more than once. So
I've had several of my veteran friends have their colleagues go into the VSO office in Marion County and other neighboring counties and literally run into roadblocks and get nowhere. And they come to Polk County and within weeks, their problems are resolved. Eric and his staff are amazing in our office
Go above and beyond.
too.
Absolutely.
Right, any further discussion?
Terrific program.
Is there, all right, is there a pending motion to approve appropriations and expenses for Veteran Service Fund?
So moved.
Second. Further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, Brent.
Hey, Brent.
thanks, Brent. You have,
8 minutes before public comment. What can we do in 8 minutes?
you can probably do the Building Improvement Fund and the Public Works Building Construction Fund. And then you'll be ready for public comment, and then we can handle Public Works after public comment section. If Gene wants to take up, a half hour of talking and whatever.
Gene, I just want to forewarn you, we're going to limit every commenter to 5 minutes max.
All right. We have two independent building type construction funds. We have the Building Improvement Fund, which has been in existence for approximately 30 years, addressing both this annex building and the historic courthouse. We also include the jail in that complex type setting. And like I said, we have operated this for over 30 years. Most of our improvements for these buildings have been funded through this program. We have sold revenue bonds or certificates of participation, however you want to classify them, for both this building and the Academy building. The Academy is a separate program budget within the Building Improvement Fund. We're repaying those loans as we speak. A lot of the expenses in these programs are to repay those loans that we've had to upgrade our facilities. All the upgrades you see to this building on the exterior, the windows, the new outside metal facade, the new landscaping, a number of things were funded through revenue bonds. Like I said, we charge internal rents to those users, both at the academy and at this building, with the exception of the court facilities, which we can't charge rent to. Overall, no major projects are going to occur over the next year. We'll do some HVAC improvements in that. That'll be funded by ARPA money though. So very little activity other than paying off and doing minor improvements. I think we're going to do restroom improvements in this building very soon, and those kind of things. So I would recommend tentatively approving the resources and appropriations in the amount of $1,050,000 for the building improvement fund.
Is there a pending motion?
So moved.
Second. Further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
And then you have the Public Works Construction Fund. We created this fund when we sold our last set of revenue bonds. We upgraded the Public Works facility, built a new shops facility, built a new EOC facility located out at Public Works. Just finishing up with that total project. We built 2 or 3 new outlying buildings for sand shed and rock and those kind of things. We just got our emergency generator. Finally, it's been on order for almost 18 months at the Public Works facility. So I think it just got installed and is operational. So we're pretty much done with all the work that's going to be occurring out there. Now we just have to use this fund to repay their portion of the revenue bonds that were moved over to cover the costs associated with all those new facilities. They receive a general fund transfer from Public Works and from the general fund because of emergency management being housed out there, and part of the locker rooms for the sheriff's department are located out there. So there's a small general fund transfer and then transfer from other funds, which is Public Works. So I would recommend tentatively approving resources and appropriations in the amount of $650,000.
So moved.
Second? Second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Yep, a mighty 2-minute break for public.
Yes, let's take a 2-minute break and then we'll come back at time for public comment.
I'll grab Mr. Whitaker, who's in the conference room in the board office. He'll be up after public comment.
Yeah, please. We're back on the record in the budget committee hearings for the 2023-2024 budget year. Now is the time set for public comment. As stated earlier on the record, each commenter will be limited to 5 minutes of comments. If anybody would like to comment, now is the time. Jean, welcome. Please introduce yourself and make your comments, if you would.
Jean Sherbeck, 744 Southeast St. Andrews Lane in Dallas. I wanted to say that I'm so proud of all the good work that this county does for its citizens. And I appreciate all of you, all the department heads, for making that possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. I appreciate your comments, and I concur. The county does an excellent job with the resources that it has, providing excellent services. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene.
It appears that there are no other commenters at this time. we will close the public comment section of the meeting. And then I believe Mr. Hanson is socializing in the hall. All right. Looks like he's coming back. So, Mr. Hanson, we needed to get started without due to the specific time constraints on public comment.
Okay.
They were scathing.
What they're there for. All right. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, the last two funds that we will be talking about are the Public Works Fund, and then you have a Public Land Corner Preservation Fund. But we'll go through with the, you can come up here, Todd, if you want. With Public Works Fund, Public Works Fund consists of the administration program, county shops, road maintenance, road construction, survey, and engineering. A majority of their funding is either received through the gas tax. At the state level, we receive approximately 7.2 million for this upcoming budget. That grows about $300,000 to $400,000 a year. We get estimates throughout the year of what our revenues are going to be. The last projection we got, and they've been fairly accurate. So I got to give them somewhat kudos on guessing what the gas tax revenue is. We have it projected at 7.2 million. They have a lot of unusual revenues included in this year's budget. We've been storing some of our federal exchange money. We used to exchange. We receive money from the federal government, but to utilize that money, we have to follow all the federal regulations. We entered historically into an exchange program with the state of Oregon. So we give them our federal money because they almost always have to have a federalized program and project. And in return, they take 6 cents, 8 cents. I think the current is 8 cents. 10. They take 10 cents. So we get 90 cents in return, but then we don't have to federalize our project, which saves us more than the 10 cents that we're charged. But we've been storing our money with the understanding that we were going to use that on Grand Run Road, which is a project that we will be doing this summer that I explained in the budget message and that. We also have some other projects that are going to be occurring out at Black Rock Road and on Hoffman Road. And those are the big projects that are more one-time projects that we don't normally do as our routine maintenance and that. FTE wise, everything pretty much in the program is going to be the same. Public Works Administration has essentially the same amount of employees. We used to have a 0.7 employee. We replaced that with a full-time employee. We may add an additional part-time employee out there, maybe not in this program, but within the Public Works budget that we'll share with potentially emergency management and that. But this administration budget is where we have the contingency for Public Works. This is also where you see the transfer, which I mentioned, to the Public Works Construction Fund coming from Public Works in the amount of $500,000. We also show the beginning fund balance for this program. County shops, we maintain all of the county road equipment. We also do maintenance on the county motor pool and the sheriff's fleet. We've also done maintenance on Marine Patrol boats and whatever equipment we have in the county. Our shops usually either repairs it or we contract out to get specialized repair, engine rebuilds and those kind of things. But again, just a normal project and program budget for county shops. The road maintenance program is primarily what the public sees us doing on a daily, monthly, annual basis for our public works and our road system. We both have obviously a paved portion of our road system and a gravel road system. You see large quantities of monies spent in certain M&S categories. Our FTE are remaining the same. If you turn the page, you get a better understanding of what we spend our M&S on. Operating supplies, it's easy to say, well, what's $550,000? Well, there's a breakout of what is made up of the $550,000. Contract services, again, $550,000, but what do we really spend it on? You can see that we spend a majority of that on flagging and other on-call trucks. It was mentioned the other day that, you know, we contract out when we don't have the appropriate level of vehicles or whatever. We've always used contract equipment, contract trucks. That's one way we keep our labor force at the proper number. A lot of other counties have labor forces that are 1.5, 2 times bigger than us, but it's amazing that our road system is so much better than theirs. So I'm not trying to bash other counties. It's just the philosophy that we use in Polk County and how we utilize contractors and to do certain jobs and work for us. I think is a better and more effective way to maintain your county roads. And I think you can tell just by the product we deliver compared to others that surround us. Again, you have road maintenance that shows what it's made up of. Chip seal is pretty explanatory. We have a chip seal program to help maintain our paved road portion. And we do that annually. The only time we really don't do that is if we pass a road bond and we have brand new pavement out on the roads. We're not going to chip seal it in day one or the year after. It's more of a preventative maintenance and allows us to keep our roads in the condition that they are for longer. We tend to, on heavier traffic roads, chip seal twice at least before we overlay, and hopefully we can get 15 to 20 years of life out of them. On those less traveled, you can extend that probably to 20, 25 years. So then you see we do asphalt. That's not major overlays in that. That's usually either patch paving or extension of aprons as they approach going from a gravel road to a paved road. You'd like to have at least a section of paved so you're not pushing rock out into the paved road in that. And then crushed rock, that is what we use to maintain our gravel road system. We have 4 grader operators that are in designated sections of the county to operate their own section and utilize rock for that purposes. So that's the bulk of what we do on an annual basis. We also do brush cutting and all those things, ditching and those things. Todd can get into that in more detail if you want. The next program, road construction, is the one that maybe nothing goes on for 2 or 3 years, 4 years, and then it seems like every project comes together all at once. And then you have Todd losing more hair or going gray sooner, and all his staff, because, you know, ideally Grand Rod Road would have been 1 year. All these others would have been 1 year, but they all creeped up and came together in a perfect storm, and they got to weather that storm. So, but those are the 3 main projects that are going to be run at the county level, and that's the appropriation to help cover those. We call them special projects. We don't identify them by road or that. And then you can see a lot of revenues that are going to be coming in, intergovernmental revenues, the exchange money revenue, all those things. And then the 2 other programs are basically support for our public road system. You have survey that are identifying things. They also are in charge of restoring public corners to make sure our mapping system and the accuracy of all our surveying points in the county are at least tied together and those kind of things. The engineering is the support staff to help get our bids out on the street for public bid, to project manage a lot of those projects that are going to be going on this summer and overall. This is the largest public works budget we've had, other than if we pass a road bond, we have a separate debt service or road bond program. But it will be a very busy summer and very busy next year and maybe a little longer. Grand Run Road, like I said, is a major reconstruct. It will close the road and cause impacts to traffic throughout the summer. It's basically the only time we can do it. So that's when it's going forward. The other projects, Black Rock will last a year almost.
Yeah.
And
A
then,
little over.
and then the one on Hoffman should be done. How quickly? 3 months?
That should be a summer.
Yeah. So that's the Public Works Fund. I can talk about it. I think he gave you guys a handout he can go through. But I would recommend approving resources and appropriations in the amount of $16,564,000 whenever you're done with Todd asking questions or him giving you an overview of the Public Works program.
Questions or further discussion?
Just noticed the comment, we're the ninth most rapidly growing county. That's kind of interesting. What's going on?
They like our roads.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, that's, Heather puts this together, so that's some statistic that she dug up.
I don't know if we're the most rapidly growing county, but we're one of.
Yeah, I don't know if that's in percent growth or it must be percent growth.
Yeah, it's not in
actual
total.
population.
Yeah,
According to the Population Census Center, Portland State University.
yeah. And you can take that for whatever you want to take it for. But we are one of the faster growing counties in percentage wise growth in the state. And we have been for the last, 10 years. Deschutes County used to be the leader and slowed down. And
So I want to editorialize a little bit. I want you to help me with my editorial. So one of the things I found most fascinating over the last year or two, when we have discussions about costs of doing business and the imposition of rules that come from federal down through state and they end up in your lap. A case in point is striping. So in here, I've seen an indication of a $260,000 cost for striping. And it's been fascinating to me how that has transitioned over time. And so, for example, share with the budget committee some of the challenges that you're having right now in the new rules coming for funding and or without funding, what you're supposed to do for striping.
Yeah, so the direction the FHWA is headed,
You should probably tell us all what that means.
Federal Highway
Thank you.
Administration. The direction they're heading now is towards requiring 6-inch edge lines or fog lines, as we know them. And I don't know if that has to do with their future vision of autonomous vehicles and the need for that. But that's the direction that they're heading. So, there's some grant monies and stuff that are out there now that are doing safety projects for 6-inch, to create 6-inch edge lines. But then if we do that, then we're required to maintain that for 10 years as part of the grant agreement. And each year we have, for the past 10 years, seems like each year there's been some kind of drama when it's time to order paint. Are we going to get it? Are they going to have enough? Well, we can give you some, but we can't fill your full order. Is there going to be enough? Last year we ran short.
we were not able to stripe all the roads that we needed to stripe. And we're striping roads that are not required to be striped. The Federal Highway Administration says that if your average daily traffic is less than 3,000, you don't need to put an edge line on. But we think in Western Oregon with the wet and the glare that comes off of it, we think that that edge line is a very important safety feature. And so we have always tried to keep our fog lines striped.
What percentage of roads would fall under that 3,000 ADT?
Probably 90%. In number of roads, maybe 80% of our road miles,
Miles, yeah.
something like that would be, so we think it's important, but we're just finding a scarcity in paint supplies. Now we're trying something different this year. We're gonna switch paint, and we're also advertising that out for bid and letting a contractor do the striping. We've historically used other counties to do our striping. So we're just gonna mix it up a little bit this year and see if that doesn't result in a cost savings. I think the biggest cost savings we'll see is in changing to a waterborne paint from the low VOC paint that we've historically used. And the low VOC was nice. We liked it because we could paint later into the year. We like to paint to be as fresh as possible going into the winter. And so a lot of the agricultural traffic that's riding on that fog line, if we put it on too soon, we start losing some retroreflectivity from that paint. So, and the low VOC dries very quickly, where the waterborne takes a little bit longer. But this past year, the low VOC paint went from, I think, $16 a gallon to $26 a gallon in one, or maybe it was $24 a gallon in one jump. And that's if you can get it. So we're just gonna give this a try and see if we don't get something that's a little more economical.
Done that. So my point with all that, again, for the record, is that's one microcosm of the challenges that you face. I mean, it's well more than just maintaining a road base and an asphalt layer.
Yeah.
There's so many nuances to what you're having to deal with and the rules that change, and supply chain challenges, irrespective of how much money you have to spend. So the paint line or the paint issues, one of those things that I find is so challenging. It's like you can make a budget and then you end up with federal and state rules that come along and say, well, we want you to try it differently with strings attached to it that mean you live with it going forward, whether it's right or wrong, good or bad.
Right. Yeah, some of the things that come down, I don't believe are good ideas. The last one they made was the change in the advisory speeds on corners. And so they had a new method with a different standard for when it says 35 and when it says 45. And it increased a lot of those speeds, advisory speeds. But the driver can't tell when they're driving down the road, is that the old system where I can go 10 miles an hour faster? Or is that the new system where I have to do what it says? They didn't change the shape of the sign.
Can you explain the difference between the two, the old system and the
Yeah,
new?
the old system had what we call a ball bank indicator. You drive a vehicle around the road, you've got this device and it's got a little curved track in there with a ball on it, and the ball banks as centrifugal force pulls it out. And they would say, let's say, if you're at 16% or 16-degree bank on the ball, you're driving the appropriate speed. Or say maybe it was 12, and now they've said no, 16 is okay because the suspension of cars are stiffer and they don't have as much body roll and stuff like that. But if you're driving a dump truck or a semi truck, and you say, well, yeah, it used to be if it said 45, I need to drive at 45. Now if it says 45, I need to drive at 35. But if they would have just, in my mind, if they would have just taken the sign and turned it 45 degrees, made it diamond plated instead of square or something, some visual indicator for the driver to see, because it was only required on roads of a certain ADT or higher. So you got two systems. I said, you know, when we do it, we're just gonna do it for the whole county, so at least we got one system on the whole county. But yeah, there's some of those things that come down that create some real challenges. Seems like everything's a research project anymore.
On this theme of setting speed limits, we have a lot of restrictions there too, don't we?
Well, that's one area where they may have opened it up a little bit. The state delegates us the authority to set speed limits on roads of 400 ADT, everyday traffic or below, which is a lot of our roads. And so that's always been in place for several decades. Recently, they went in the legislative process and what we typically went for when we did a speed investigation was the 85th percentile speed was the speed that it should be posted at. And that's the speed at which 85% of the drivers are at or below. And they opened that up and said you can pick between 50 and 85% now, which is a pretty decent band to check with. My personal practice is to stay with 85 unless there is a crash history or a roadside culture that's dangerous, a hazard or something like that. But there needs to be some extenuating circumstance to go lower than the 85. But in some cases, if your speed study said it should be 45, you know, the 50th percentile might be 40. So they're not huge adjustments, but it might drop at 5 to 10 miles per hour.
Well, I'd just like to commend you and your staff on this past winter and your efforts to keep our roads safe. The ice storm, that freezing rain that we all had at the county-wide at once. They had 500 miles of frozen road, and this crews out there took them a couple of days, but they constantly were on it. And then the bus routes, the plowing in the snowstorms and your de-icer efforts.
Yeah, it was a long winter when it came to the snow and ice stuff. I mean, we didn't have huge accumulation, but it just kept coming at us, you know, like 5 or 6 weeks there, we had people out at night sanding roads or plowing snow. And happy to report that we are fully staffed on the road crew again. It's been a number of years before we could keep that up there. There was a good deal of turnover, and we're fully staffed. And I think we've got a really great crew. I'm not just being a cheerleader, but it's like we're pretty solid.
I think a big factor here is, again, having the autonomy to solve problems within the parameters that you have. That's, and you guys have always excelled at that.
And we try to be innovative and stay within the rules that are set, but find
Still
creative ways
solve those.
to
Yes,
still get the job done.
yes.
Any further discussion? I believe that Mr. Hanson had suggested a motion previously to tentatively approve resources and expenditures in the amount of $16,564,000. Do I have anybody on the committee to make that motion?
Also move.
Have a second?
Second,
Further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
The last little fund that is overseen, it's actually overseen by the surveyor, is the public land corner preservation fund. This was created way back when to achieve a better survey system throughout the state. It was attached to recording fees that had land involved. Like I said, I think it was a $10 fee, 9 of which goes to this fund and 1 that was retained by the clerk's office for administration of that. You'll see that when recording fees go down, this budget goes down too, because it's just, you know, when recording's up, like I said, historically, this fund was doing well. As recording fees have continued to drop, we will also have a reduction in the amount of money available for this fund. So most of the work that's done for corner preservation is done by internal staff. We transfer money from, well, actually, Public Works charges this fund $75,000 is proposed this year. In the past, it's been as high as $125,000, but the fund can't afford that anymore. So we're down at the $75,000 amount to charge back to this fund. But I would recommend tentative approval, both in resources and appropriations, in the amount of $200,000.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Eric retiring for sure.
What's that?
Is Eric retiring for sure?
Yep, May 1.
Okay. Yeah, we will have a new surveyor upcoming. Eric Berry will be retiring before the end of this fiscal year. So we have a person already in place that will move into that role. He's been chief? What do we
He's
call
been
it?
our survey crew chief.
Yeah.
For 4 or 5 years, maybe.
Yep. So it shouldn't affect the product that we're receiving or anything. But just wanted to thank Eric for his service. Been a long time.
Yeah, over 30 years.
Yep. So. All right, that leaves back to the non-departmental section. Transfers and contingency. Essentially, we approved all transfers de facto, as I mentioned, after parks and that. So we have approximately $2,400,000 worth of transfers. We transfer $150,000 to Public Works, and that's just a plug number because we receive state timber monies. We don't know exactly what those monies are going to be. It's been as little as $3,000 and as much as $670,000. When they cut, they cut. When we get the revenue, we get it, and then we transfer it from the general fund to the Public Works Fund. But we cannot predict it with any type of accuracy. So we use 150,000. Sometimes they get a lot more and sometimes they get a lot less, but that's the number we picked historically. Talked about the dog control fund, raising it up to 170,000 with the addition of a half-time employee due to other cities probably discontinuing their dog control program. Marine Patrol is a normal transfer, law library, normal transfer, domestic mediation, a normal transfer, transfer to health services is 250,000. That's to support FCO and the Health Services Fund. Public health is at 200,000. Juveniles down a little to 755,000. Fair Fund at 200,000. Veteran Services, as we just went over, was 90,000. And then the transfers to the Building Improvement Fund, the Public Works Construction Fund, and the Insurance Fund are transfers we've made in the past. Total transfers, 2.4 million. And seeking tentative approval of those transfers.
I have a motion.
Move.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
And then the last thing is the general fund contingency. You have one wish list item of $5,000. So if you don't approve that wish list item, your number is going to be $4,084,600 or $579 contingency. If you approve the 5,000, it will be 5,000 less. So it'll be $4,079,579. So it's time for you to decide to vote on the adding the 5,000 to the CASA, going from the 20,000 that I proposed to the 25,000 they requested. Or if you have any other wish list items you would like to add, you can do that now.
Discussion about the wish list items.
I support it.
Okay,
I do too.
It sounds like you're gonna fund the additional $5,000 for CASA.
believe that that is the consensus. So that would mean that we'd have a
Contingent
operating contingency of $4,079,579.
79. That would be correct, and I would add the 5,000 to the tentatively approved budget for CASA.
So is there a pending motion to approve the operating contingency? Second,
Second.
further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Believe that that concludes.
That will conclude everything. The only thing that's going to, well, there's going to be two things that could affect all contingencies. That is anything that the state does between now and when I have better information in May. The other thing we discussed, and I don't know if Commissioner Polk was here, we talked about a PERS reserve fund. Okay, but I've talked to you a little before that. I'm going to explore looking at a PERS reserve fund to address future PERS increases, employer rate increases that occur every 2 years. I explained to the budget committee that the potential for the next rate change for employers could be substantial. It could be as high as 6%, but when it creeps that high, everyone screams, so they tend to ratchet it back down and kick the can down the road. But we can be better prepared if we add that surcharge right now to all appropriate departments, put it in a dedicated fund, and then transfer it back out to those appropriate funds when those costs incur to the county. Like I told the budget committee, it's going to affect the general fund, public works fund, and behavioral health fund the most, and everyone else is going to be somewhat secondary on the amount that affects. But I will put a spreadsheet together and I will show different options, probably a 2% surcharge, 3% surcharge. It wouldn't be higher than 3%. I'll present that in the May hearings and show you how it will affect the general fund contingency and those other contingencies that we have in those appropriate funds, or add cost to those appropriate funds. So other than that, your work, at least tentatively, is done. We will meet again May 17th to formally approve the budget, formally approve the tax rate, hopefully formally be able to say that the new levy rate is 49.5 cents rather than the 42.5 cents, if we will have results by then. If not, I will be prepared to let you know the magnitude of not passing the operating levy for public safety and how that will impact the appropriate budgets. So, other than that, I always thank you for your work and wish you well.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. We are adjourned to May 17 at 9:30.
All right, thank you.
Reagan, what's the word on gas tax stuff if we go electric